Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Cortesia Boyd here with Chaplain Dr. Michael Chambers today. We're going to discuss his journey from hesitation to vaccination. And I want to welcome you, Chaplain, and thank you for being with us today to discuss your why behind you receiving the COVID-19 vaccine.
Thank you for having me.
So wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself to share with our viewers?
Absolutely. I've been in the ministry for 31 years and served as a pastor from Mississippi to Georgia to Maryland and Florida. Also, I have been a great advocate for those who are inundated with injustices as well as inequities. At the same time, I am a proponent, and my mission is to help those who have been disenfranchised as well as marginalized. As a part of that process, I engage a lot in empowerment zones for individuals, but also creating spiritual platforms for them as well.
Throughout your journey and just throughout your experiences, how has this impacted your role as a chaplain?
It has impacted my role as a chaplain greatly. I oftentimes lead ministry, provide ministry, and I do it from the lenses of the Micah 6:8 passage, which states what is required of you. And for me, and as it relates to the scripture, is to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly before God. And through those lenses, I've had the golden opportunity of serving veterans who are struggling with issues of incarceration, those who have been inundated with shame and guilt, those who are facing the fire within, trying to let go and engage in moments of forgiveness as well, but also those who are grappling with end-of-life decisions and choices. God has blessed me with the golden opportunity to serve those in those capacities.
Wonderful, and we appreciate that service. So now let's get into the part where we're talking about the urgency for vaccination. I know you've shared about the 4 prisms and kind of walking us through that step-by-step journey, if you will. Let's start with the first one.
Those prisms have not only served as a process that I use to go from hesitation to vaccination, but also my personal journey. The first prism is the shattered prism. In that prism, I believe in wandering, what I term as wandering through the sea of injustices and inequities. For example, as you know, the Tuskegee study, syphilis study, during that time period in which hundreds of African American men were used as human guinea pigs. It is noted that in history that there were many doctors that were in charge of that study that were instrumental in landing upon a nefarious scheme and plot to perpetuate and continue that whole process. And from that point and moment in time of that shattered prison, that's not only a lived experience, but a laboratory engagement for those who are in the healthcare industry. So from that point, I know that that is a mile marker of mistrust that helps me to develop that process.
No, agreed. And that has shown itself kind of to be valid and true within the African American community.
Absolutely.
So the next prism kind of takes us into childhood experiences with vaccinations. Tell us a little bit about that and your journey.
I term that as the discolored prism. And what I mean by that is actually not only thinking about that and contemplating that and wandering through the memory lane of Mississippi, as I term it, the place in which I grew up. I remember very vividly receiving those green and those blue type cards, and my parents taking us down to the health department. And we were required to have our vaccinations, or our shots, if you will. You could not enter in school unless you had those items in your possession. And so the discoloration comes from all the pin marks, from the black and the blue and the red. And I remember that so much so. And not only that, but also in a time period in which my dad was stationed in Swabach, Germany. In our passports, we had our shots, and that discolored card was there. So part of that process and what gave me additional assurance as it relates to vaccination is remembering that time through memory lane in Mississippi.
Okay, I think we can all relate to the fact of receiving vaccinations, going to school, some even international travel. It's necessary for you to get vaccinated and to go to school and such. And so the third prism talks a little bit about the pandemic and how it impacted your decision to be vaccinated. Can you share with our viewers about that?
Yeah. I liken that to the Stain prison, and remembering very vividly walking through the trail of tears. I believe that the tears are the language of the soul, and I had the golden opportunity to serve as an eyewitness to many tears that fell from the eyes of veterans, their families, staff, employees, friends, and families who were directly or indirectly impacted by COVID-19. So I was in those moments and those times, and that further encouraged me to move forward in doing something that was necessary for my community and for my family and my friends as well.
You know, and I'm glad you shared that about, the tears being the language of the soul. That's a very powerful statement. And I think just within our community as a healthcare system and just within the communities in general, we've taken the time out, right, to reflect of what's the utmost important, whether it's personal within our journey and making those applicable decisions.
Right.
Now on to the last prism of your journey. We arrive at a place of confidence, right, where you were assured.
Absolutely.
And a place of action, where you took action. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I call that the clear prism, and being clear-eyed. At this point in the stage, it's now time to move forward in action. I liken that to winning by trusting the sacred text and trusting the God that's behind the skills of the science and the scientists. As you begin to think about that and contemplate that, I'm so much so ensured that God has gotten me to this place to move forward with vaccination. But also think about the words of Dr. King, and which summarizes it all for me. Science investigates, but religion interprets. And when you begin to think about that, you think about the fact that King said that science also gives man knowledge for power, but religion gives man wisdom for control. And through all of that, science deals with the facts, but religion deals with values. And the two are not rivals. They are complementary in the process in gaining that confidence that I had to move forward with the vaccination.
Yeah, another powerful quote and statement that resonates, I'm sure, with so many. What do you want the people to know? As you've shared your journey, what are the takeaways?
The takeaways. Well, I would say to them, it's important for us to remember how imperative it is of us to move forward in a place where we seek the advice of our primary care doctors to get that information from them, and don't become inundated with misinformation. But the capstone for me in this entire journey and struggle is this, is to remember the person of color that's at the table, that's not just sitting at the table, but she's at the head of the table. We fondly know her as Dr. Kizzy Corbett, who is the lead scientist for NIH. She is not just a spectator, but she is the pace setter as it relates to the COVID vaccine. So that's my message to you, for your family, for your friends, for your churches, for clergy, for those who are just struggling, trying to find an answer as to why we should move from hesitation to vaccination.
Chaplain Dr. Michael Chambers, we appreciate you sharing your journey and being very transparent in doing so.
Thank you so much.